Back when I first moved into my house and I did a few of the walkthroughs, I talked about how I had plans to set up a few security cameras. Well, ReoLink came in really clutch. They sent over the ReoLink Duo 3V PoE camera, and I'm going to go ahead and get this thing unboxed. We're going to set it up. We're going to do some testing. We're going to do some daytime testing, some nighttime testing, both with the color mode that they advertise, as well as the IR mode. And then we're going to talk about where I plan to mount this thing for long-term use. And yeah, we'll go ahead and talk about what I like about it, what I don't like about it. We'll see how the testing goes. And without further ado, let's check out those specs and a few of the features. So the Duo 3V PoE has a 1x2.8 inch CMOS sensor with a maximum resolution of 7680 by 2160 at 16 megapixels at 20 frames per second. That resolution is an ultra wide resolution because this camera has a dual lens setup where it allows for 180 degrees of a field of view, which is fantastic. It has an f1.6 aperture lens. The infrared is effective up to 30 meters. We'll go ahead and test that when we do our tests. And it has a color night vision with the spotlight, which is quite bright as well. It has a minimum frame rate of 2 frames per second and a maximum of 20 frames per second when being done as a mainstream. And it has a maximum bit rate of 10,240 kilobytes per second. It also supports two-way audio. There is a built-in microphone and speaker on this camera. It has a micro SD slot that supports up to 256 gigabits. And as mentioned, it is a PoE camera, so it does both the data and power through Ethernet. The camera also has a smart alarm, which uses the motion detection, person detection, vehicle detection, and animal detection modes. It is able to record based on motion triggered, schedule recording, or just 24/7 recording. And it also supports time lapse. It has smart home compatibility with Google Assistant, which is really cool. And I believe a lot of ReoLink's cameras are also able to be integrated with systems like Ubiquiti. Maybe that's an idea for a future video. If you are interested in me doing something like that, please let me know down in the comment section below. I'm not going to be doing anything like that in this video, but if you are interested, I'd love to cover it in another video. Now, one worrisome spec for me is the working environment operating temperature. It often gets below -30 where I live during the winter, and the operating temperature, the maximum that they mention for the low end is -15 degrees Celsius. So I will have to talk to ReoLink about this to see if this is something that I can get around, because if not, it's not going to be a long-term solution for me, because as mentioned, it gets really, really cold here, and only being able to operate to -15 degrees Celsius is just not going to work. You know, we're a couple of months away from it getting really, really cold, and it will get below that 15 degrees Celsius quite often between January and March. So yeah, we'll see what happens. As always, there will be links down in the description below where you can go ahead and check out the Duo 3V PoE for yourself. And if you do end up using those links, they do support the channel, and I really do appreciate it. All right, so let's get this thing open. So we do have the ReoLink Duo 3V PoV, and this is the dome style one. And we're gonna go ahead and get this open. So here we have a little card piece with some stickers, operational instructions, the rest of their product line, a cloth, some tips, and waterproof lid instructions, and then a template for mounting. And it's a sticker template as well, so you can stick it onto whatever surface you're going to be mounting your camera to. Then we take this off, and there is our camera. Go ahead and pull this out. I think it's going to pull the foam out with it. Yep. There we go. Oh. All right, let's take a look what fell. So this is the waterproofing canister for making sure that it's all nice and snug and tight. Then they give us a short little Ethernet cable, which is nice, and then some mounting hardware, and one of the little release rods that you would see with like a phone, and an Allen key. And then we have the actual camera itself. Pretty solid. It's a metal housing. And so we have the ReoLink branding there. You'd want to have this facing outwards, and We have the micro SD slot and the reset in there. We have our QR code for setup. We have all of our product information there, our serial number, and the speaker as well. So this is eventually where I want the camera to get mounted, but unfortunately for testing purposes, it's not great. It's got a pillar like right in front of it, but I don't really know how I want to mount it to the eave yet either. So if you guys have any suggestions, let me know. But I will probably mount it like right up here and just have the cable kind of running over a little bit, or open up that hole a little bit and feed that white cable from the actual camera up in there with the waterproofing. But yeah, that's the plan. All right, so I have a very ghetto setup here, and this is going to allow me to put the camera up against this wall, and then that'll allow me to cover other cameras, other security cameras, in a very similar fashion with the same kind of view, so that they're all kind of being compared the same way. As mentioned, the area that I want to put this camera in permanently is not very good for testing purposes, just because of the positioning and everything. So this is how we're doing it. So let's go ahead and get it mounted. So the first thing you're going to want to do is unscrew the 4 Allens. That will allow you to take this cover off, and it will allow you to access the holes where you can go ahead and screw it into the surface that you're going to mount it to. And before we put it up, because I'm mounting it vertically, I have to actually make sure that I have this lined up nicely and then rotate it like so, with it pointing at about 0 on the inside there. You can kind of see some of the numbers, but it does allow you to rotate it quite a bit. And you can get a lot of movement there. So we want it to be as much like that as possible. One thing I forgot to mention is that I do appreciate that all of the screws, so like the screws for the micro SD that I just put in, and the screws for the cover are all capacitive, so they don't fall out. When you're outside, having a screw that small fall on the ground, it's a pain in the butt. So I'm glad that they're all capacitive like that and they stay in. All right, so we got it plugged in. I'm not using the waterproof cover right now just because I'm just doing this for tests, but just follow the instructions for the waterproof cover when you install it. And we've got it up there. Setup on the phone was relatively easy. All you need to do is just scan that QR code with the app and get it set up. So let's hop into the app now. All right, so this is how everything looks in the app. It's got a pretty good field of view. We're able to see quite a bit here. I'm able to see basically along the edge of the house there. And it is a little bit delayed. So I'm moving my hand and it's maybe 1 or 2 seconds out. Nothing huge, but let's go ahead and see how it looks on the actual recording itself. So if I stand directly in the middle here, you can see that I kind of warp a little bit as I go through the center of the 2 cameras. So we're just going to go ahead and adjust that. So to do this, we're going to go to our settings, we're going to go to display, go down to advanced, and then image stitching. And then here we want to go ahead and do the adjustments. Alright, I think that's as good as I'm going to get it. Okay, so I got the stitching to work at small distances, but once I get further away, the stitching doesn't work as great, so we'll fix that a little bit later. For now, we'll just stand off-center when I do all these tests. But here we are, we're in the clear setting, which is set to the maximum bitrate, the maximum resolution, and the maximum frame rate. I'll put all that information that's there on the screen. And what we're going to do is we're currently testing the microphone. I'm just talking at a regular volume. We've got a little bit of background noise, but not very much right now. And we're going to go ahead and just move back at 10-foot intervals. We'll do static first, and then we'll go ahead and do some moving stuff. Then we'll come back at nighttime, and we'll test it with both the spotlight on and with just the IR sensors. So, this is at about 10 feet. Is that about 20 feet? Is that about 30 feet? Is that about 40 feet? Is that about 50 feet? Okay, so we're back here at night. This is with the spotlight on. I have it on the auto mode, so it'll turn on whenever it notices motion. And we're going to do the same kind of test as we did before. There's a little bit of background noise with an air conditioner going, so we'll see how well you can hear me. And we'll do everything just as we did with the daylight. So it's around 10 feet, around 20 feet, about 30 feet, about 40 feet, about 50 feet. Okay, now we're in the IR mode, so the spotlight is off, and it is using IR cameras and sensors to pick up all of this. 10 feet, about 20 feet, about 30 feet, about 40 feet, about 50 feet.
And here's just a quick test of what the speaker on the camera sounds like. This is how it sounds.
So let's talk about some pros and cons about the camera. So pros, as we saw in the testing, during daytime, the camera is really crisp in both static situations and moving situations. It did a very good job. I'm very impressed with it. Having that really wide field of view is fantastic. If I were to have this on the side of the house, it would be able to cover the entire area that I'd want to be able to cover, which is really nice with a singular camera instead of having to use two, which is really cool. I think the nighttime performance was really good. It just didn't do nearly as well in motion. I really do like the build quality overall. The camera is fantastic. I really do like the build quality. And the software works really well. The app has worked fantastic for me so far. I've had no issues. I adjusted the way I wanted the notifications to work. The detections have been working well. I just turned off the notification for detections while I'm doing this testing. And overall, I'm pretty happy with the way that everything's working. In terms of the cons, the nighttime motion quality is not great. We weren't able to read the sign basically in any of the motion tests, either with the spotlight or with the IR camera, although that is a really tricky situation for the camera to be able to deal with. Also, in terms of the microphone and the microphone is actually pretty impressive. I was able to hear myself clearly in almost all the clips. I did have to just increase the gain in post a little bit to be able to hear some of that, but on the web client and on the actual app on my phone, I was able to hear myself fine. And in some of my other clips where I had made some issues and I had to re-record them, you're even able to hear people that are playing in a court, maybe about 100, 120 feet away from the camera.
This is at about 20 feet. This is at about 30 feet. This is at about 40 feet.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
You're able to hear them pretty well as well. So that's overall quite impressive. And this is with the sound or the noise reduction on the second highest setting. Now, the speaker sounds pretty rough when speaking through it, but I feel like its main purpose is for the siren or the alarm. And it does a very good job when using the siren. It doesn't sound distorted or anything, but when talking through it, it sounded really rough. But again, I don't really think that this is really meant for you to be talking to someone and them talking to you back. If you're going to be using that speaker, it's going to be telling someone to go away or that you've caught them on camera. This isn't like a doorbell camera where it's meant to have some kind of brief conversation or anything like that. So it's not a huge deal for me. I'm more concerned about the quality of the microphone. And as we've mentioned, microphone sounds pretty good. The operating temperature being a maximum or a minimum of minus 15 degrees Celsius is a con for me because, as mentioned before, it gets really cold where I live and that is going to be exceeded. You know, if not by the end of this year into January, we're definitely going to get below minus 15 degrees Celsius. So that is a problem for me. And the only other con that I can think of is I wish that the camera was able to be adjusted remotely. So as we talked about when we were setting it up, you do have to go ahead and adjust where the lenses are and point them in a direction that works for you. And once you do that, you have to leave it like that unless you want to take the dome off again and manually adjust it. I do wish that that was automated, or that it had some motors so that you can go ahead and turn it and do whatever. I understand that that would probably increase the cost of the camera. However, it's just, something I wish this camera had. Now, with all that said, let's talk about the pricing. And I think the pricing is another good pro. This camera is $200 regular price. It'll often end up going on sale. And I think at $200, it does provide a lot of value. It is a great camera at the $200 price point. During the day, it performs exceptionally well. At night, it performs really, really well, except for in motion. But the IR in static actually really, really surprised me. It did really, really well up to that maximum distance that I was able to do without becoming out of frame. It was very easy for me to set up, even with this whole testing scenario. It was very easy for me to set up, even though I was doing it in a testing scenario. It's a relatively seamless process. I think the camera overall is just a really good choice if you do need something that has a really wide field of view. If you don't need that wide field of view, this is obviously not a good option for you, because you'll be able to get another camera that is probably going to be a little bit less expensive, maybe even have the motors that I mentioned before where you're able to turn and adjust the camera where you want to at a cheaper price. So that is something to keep in mind. But at this price point, I do think it's pretty good. So with all that said, I really do hope I'm able to get this thing solved in terms of the temperature so that I can get this mounted on my eaves and have it set up and ready to go for the winter. I really do want to have that whole side situation set up. This was meant for the side of my house so that I could just keep an eye on everything, because that side of my house faces public space. And I've had a lot of people just walking through my property, letting their dogs just poop and then just leaving it there, which is a pain in the butt. Having the 180 degrees would cover the entire area that I needed to, which is great. And I think that this thing would perform extremely well in that situation. But as mentioned, that temperature is going to be a problem. So I do have to talk to ReoLink first and figure out if this is going to be a problem for me going forward, because it does get very, very cold here. Now, with all that said, I'm really curious what you guys think. How do you think the camera performed? How do you think I performed with all the tests? This is my first ever security camera video. So were my tests comprehensive enough? Did I cover enough stuff? Is there anything I missed? Is there anything you wish I tested that I didn't? Please let me know down in the comment section below. I will be doing more security camera videos, especially from ReoLink, in the upcoming soon future. So any feedback is super welcome, and any feedback about the camera is also super welcome. I'm sure ReoLink will be reading the comments, and I'll be reading the comments to see what you guys think about it. So please let me know. With all that said though, I really do hope you found this video helpful, and if not, I at least hope you found it interesting. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you can leave those down in the comment section below, and I'll try to get to them all as quickly as I can. Big thanks to my Patreon sponsors, and big thanks to you for watching to the end of this video. If you do want to see any other videos where I talk about products and review them, you can check out the playlist right up here. And as always, stay safe out there. I'll see you next time.